a show of them.
On our little red dot today, mixed couples and mixed children are a common sight. In fact, 1 in 5 marriages in Singapore is now an interracial one.
There's a Chinese Singaporean man here.
Okay, yeah.
Who's upset
Yet recent episodes like these suggest old attitudes linger.
saying that she being a Chinese shouldn't be with a person like me.
Yeah, correct.
And then you're
Indian
saying,
race, Indian, I'm not like you. I'm not just saying you, okay? I'm saying Indian race.
Many wonder how such blatant racism exists in Singapore today. And if racial harmony, carefully nurtured through the decades, is just tolerance kept under wraps. Interracial couples may face objections and more challenges coming together.
You're going to go out with that Chinese girl, right? If you go out tonight, then you don't come back.
That first meetup with my mom was very frosty, and I could tell immediately that she didn't approve of it.
But successes of love, crossing racial, cultural, and language boundaries are aplenty in Singapore. And these are some of those stories.
We met on a dating website.
My cousin's his best friend.
We were both in teachers training college.
We met in junior college.
I regretfully did not remember how we met.
I opened a personal account, and she was the person that opened the account for me.
We met in OkCupid.
Fate. I would say we were brought together by fate.
We met through Instagram.
Yeah, social media. That's, I think everyone does that right now. Yeah.
She saw my pictures on the Explore page. So
Yeah, on
that's when
Instagram.
she pressed the like button and caught my attention.
I don't usually like people's photo, so yeah, he's lucky lah. Yeah.
I was like, oh, who's this cute girl? I never thought that a Chinese girl would be attracted to a Malay Indian like me.
An online attraction led to conversations and finally a physical meeting. Although the issue of race briefly flashed across Yasser's mind, to him, the bigger concern was there a difference in faith.
He actually bring that up to me because his family is quite pious.
Serendipity was the couple's strongest ally. Sheila always had an interest in Islam and was contemplating conversion.
When I was like in primary 6 or what, I have more like Malay friends than my Chinese friends. So every time when we walk past the mosque, I think there's a like, it's called azan prayer, like a calling. It's quite like smoothing and then it's quite alluring to me. Got me curious like, oh, why they have to fast? Why do they have to pray and all? At that point of time, I think there's a tsunami also in Indonesia. I was curious because there's a mosque only, it's still standing. And then like, every buildings are all washed away. So it got me like interested in Islam.
I was pretty fresh out of a divorce. And I think at that time I was ready to meet someone new. So I thought, okay, dating website, because in my social circle, I wasn't really meeting anybody.
I just arrived in Singapore in a few months before, so I didn't have a very wide circle of connection. So it was easy. I was also freshly divorced.
Both in their 30s then, Jocelyn and Arno went into this dating experiment with completely open minds. Both left most of the preferences on their dating profiles unchecked.
Criteria-wise, I think I just check out professional or something like that. Was open to any religion, any race, any nationality. Yeah.
Little did she know that she would end up being matched with someone from Metz, a small town in northeastern France.
Oh, okay. From France. Interesting. Romantic? Nah. He was wearing spectacles still at that time. He looks like the typical, IT nerd to me.
Yeah, still, but...
Not quite. Doesn't quite fit my stereotypical image of a Frenchman. You know what I mean? Like the romanticized ideal of a Frenchman. Oh no, he's far from it.
No, it was better.
If you say so. Of course.
Yeah. So I think our first meet, we laughed quite a lot.
Probably I laughed because I couldn't understand what you were saying.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So just
still,
out of politeness.
Still.
Yeah, still.
But it's good because it's prevent friction sometimes.
Dating apps have become hugely popular for singles who are interested in meeting new friends and lifelong partners. For algorithms to generate potential matches, one of the first steps is having users complete a questionnaire listing their requirements and preferences.
Top 3, I would say probably religion if it matters to them strongly. Perhaps also height to a certain extent, right? Sometimes race.
In the evolutionary past, women likely preferred taller guys because physical strength and physical prowess, dominance, those kind of things were very important back then to fight like dangerous animals or enemy tribes or unwanted male attention. We still have this leftover kind of evolutionary heritage, right? So women still prefer taller guys.
Well, that explains about the height preference. But what about race? Even though 1 out of 5 marriages in Singapore are interracial ones, according to a survey conducted by Channel News Asia and the Institute of Policy Studies in 2016, most Singaporeans still prefer to date a partner from the same race.
It is in our genes to basically have some kind of a natural distrust or aversion towards people who are very dissimilar looking. They have traits, physical traits that are very dissimilar, or their mannerisms, behaviors, their language, their culture, all that. Because from an evolutionary perspective, dissimilar traits will be a marker of being from a different tribe. And that tribe is probably going to be competing for the same resources as your tribes. They're probably enemies.
Before starting Kopi Date, Jinglin and Zichun met through a dating app themselves.
We actually connected very strongly based on the idea of how much we really dislike dating apps.
Dating apps can be very overly gamified, where you have to text a lot of people a lot of people at one go. So you have to play endless mind games, and you have to put up the best version of yourselves online, and just getting ghosted. So it's a very tiring process for a lot of people.
They designed their startup to hit that sweet spot between online dating app and traditional personal matchmaker.
We wanted to strip away all the hype and fuss from dating apps and get to what's really important, which is building this platform where it's a space where people can meet unique minds on a one-on-one basis over coffee.
Despite the popularity of dating apps, Cupid's arrow still strikes the old analog way. An authentic connection is key to sealing the deal. Jacqueline was just about to give up on the dating site altogether after several uneventful matches over a year, till she saw Kumaran's profile.
Oh, that's interesting. It's a DJ picture. Then I thought, why not I message him and say, "Sup," because I act cool, right? Yeah.
Kumaran was also close to giving up by his 6th month on the site when Jacqueline's message popped up.
I thought, like, what is this person trolling me? So I went through the pictures, and so one of the pictures was her posing next to a mirror, and it had a concert ticket on it, and it was the 9 Inch Nails logo. Then we discovered that we like a lot of similar music.
The two of them soon arranged to meet in person. Racial difference was never an issue.
The Institute of Policy Studies has conducted a survey in 2013, and then we repeated it in 2018, around the issues of race, religion, and language. We find that the level of acceptance and trust is highest among those who are younger. The policies of, helping Singaporeans mix with one another. Let's think of the ethnic integration program, the integration that happens in schools. These have kicked in over the last few decades. You see that the younger generation are reaping the fruits of all those efforts at socialization, and they are more accepting, more trusting of people who are not like themselves.
Most might fret and fuss over the right outfit to make a good first impression on their first dates. Not so much for Kumaran and Jacqueline.
He showed up with this purple shirt, and the logo is a Starbucks logo with Star Wars, right? He looks like as if he just woke up.
I was right outside the mall, and she just stood there. She looked very grumpy. She looked like she's doing security for the mall. So fierce.
Yet that experience fit in perfectly with what each of them was looking for. An authentic true self and an authentic connection. In 1992, Jakob and Keiko were both part of a youth exchange program designed for Japanese and Southeast Asian students. When Keiko made a speech in her stunning red dress at the welcome ceremony, she made an unforgettable impression on Jakob. Months later, Keiko returned to Singapore to pursue her master's at the National University of Singapore. Jakob then found a way into her heart by buying her breakfast every day.
He was a legend at Temasek Ball because he brought breakfast to everybody. Like, I was staying in the hall. Same floor, yes. All the ladies.
But Jakob's kind and generous gesture came across as strange and overreaching to Keiko.
I mean, once a week or, sometimes it's okay, but every day, you're like, why is he buying breakfast every day? Is it a Singapore thing? And I would go to the toilet during the time he comes, or I would hide into somebody else's room.
You hide? Oh, I didn't know you hide it.
Oh, yes, I hide in the shower room.
Oh, my God.
Yep.
Jakob's persistence paid off. In a moment when Keiko felt overwhelmed with schoolwork and needed a shoulder to cry on, he was right there.
I just broke down and I was like, I can't do this anymore, He just told me that everything is going to be fine, you're doing great. You're alone, being, lonely. Maybe you just kept it all in yourself, so you just have to let it go. So he just lent me his shoulder and he just let me cry.
So I just let her fall and try and cry and just say, okay, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry.
Because generally, guys may take advantage of the vulnerability of the lady when they're studying overseas and they're alone. But Jakob did not take any advantage. He just listened.
Keiko started to see Jakob under a different light. She wanted to get to know him better.
He's matured enough so that we can talk. I can learn from him, and because we're from different countries, we can give each other like different perspective of certain issues. He was genuinely a very nice person, and our thought thinking was quite similar. So I just wanted to know what made him like that. And I think a big part of him was the religion.
This appreciation would put Keiko's conversion to Islam along a much more natural path. Campus courtships are hardly uncommon. Some of them have more interesting starts than others. On Shikin's 17th birthday, she received an anonymous text wishing her happy birthday.
That time, it wasn't WhatsApp, so you can't see like a profile picture. It was a SMS. So I didn't want to be rude, so I just said thank you, not knowing who this person is.
As it turned out, the birthday greeting was from a secret admirer who was smitten by Shikin's dance moves during a performance organized for Taiwanese exchange students.
We were, showcasing the different multicultural parts of Singapore, and that included a Malay dance. And VJ didn't have very many Malay girls, so, I was roped in to, be part of the performance.
So she was on stage, and then, so my impression is she's very pretty and graceful.
The beneficiaries from the Malay cultural program weren't just the Taiwanese students. Yan Ho had found the girl of his dreams. After drumming up courage to introduce himself, Yan Ho was still not ready to ask Shikin out. His next move would have impressed even Shakespeare. Yan Ho started writing letters to Shikin anonymously.
It was happening at around the same time as the junior batch coming into the junior college. So there's like Angel Mortal, Secret Admirer kind of letter game tradition going on there. So I kind of used the opportunity to send letters.
Okay, so I started receiving letters in my locker. Eventually, I found out that it was our mutual friend, Mohan, who had been dropping these letters inside my locker. And he outed him and said it was this guy.
Feeling more confident with the written word, Yan Ho wrote to ask Shikin out for their first date. And in another letter, he posed some very important questions.
Again, in a letter format, wrote, would you be my girlfriend? And then had a tick box, yes, no, and maybe. I should have ticked maybe, but I ticked yes because I was so enamored by him, so yeah.
Although it's common for teenagers to keep secrets from their parents, Shikin had another reason to keep her relationship with Yan Ho under wraps.
The fact that we were from different races kind of scared me a little bit because my father's a very, he's a strict Muslim man. And so in my head, I'm thinking if he finds out I'm dating a Chinese boy, he's going to skin me alive.
Shikin was successful in hiding her relationship from her father for only about 5 months. Till one day, as Yan Ho was walking her home after school.
My father spotted us on his way back from work. He was on the bus opposite us, and that was how he spotted us walking home. And then after he said, oh, can I talk to you? And then that was when I knew, like, he knows, you can feel it in your bones. And so then he sat me down. He was like, are you eating pork? You're dating a Chinese boy. Do you remember the fundamentals of your religion? And I think as we talked, his freak out started to reduce, and he started realizing that, look, it didn't change who I was from a religious perspective. I still remember my fundamentals. I was 17 at that time. He kind of knew my rebellious nature, so he knew that if he had outright said no, and I might have gone behind his back, right? So he said, okay, fine, as long as you remember your religious fundamentals, just go ahead, but remember, don't do anything that you're not comfortable with.
Don't knock into the railing. See, can you see the fish there? See? Oh,
wow, it's so hot. All the sweat coming out.
Yeah, we can use this to wipe there. Yeah.
Hey, you be gentle. This scarf is very old. You know?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you look 1964.
From
the Tokyo Olympics. Yeah.
Love letters have helped move many relationships along across many generations. Si Kunalan met Yong Yin as fellow national runners in their youth. When he made it to the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, he made sure to remind Yong Yin of his existence thousands of miles away.
He was away for 2 weeks, but then he wrote me 14 letters in that 2 weeks. Okay. So that makes me feel really missing him. I tried going out on dates, but then there was no feeling. The thoughts was on him.
She didn't ask permission. After coming back, put my bags down, and I talked to my parents for 10 minutes, and then I left home.
To meet each other at East Coast, right?
You know, when you go to Olympic Games, you either win or you lose. So for me, I didn't win a medal, but I won her.
For years, Hema and Daryl were just very good friends. Romance between them almost came as a surprise.
One night we were just chatting and we had a really deep conversation about our what we want to do in life, and it was pretty much aligned because he always said that he wanted to travel, and I love traveling. The kind of goals was not very materialistic. It wasn't like, oh, you need to get a condo and a car and a high-paying job. It wasn't about that. It was more about the experiences
that got us thinking like, oh, maybe this is someone that I could spend my life with.
The qualities that builds a strong marriage would be like if we have common values, common interests, common way of thinking, or maybe have common dreams. You both want to live in an island somewhere, as a retirement. Or those are the things that really help to make it work.
Initially, because all his ex-girlfriends were Chinese, so you just automatically think that, oh yeah, he's probably going to end up with another Chinese girl anyway. So it didn't cross my mind that he would be someone that could be a potential partner for me.
Despite a predisposition among humans to seek mates who look like them, love is, after all, colorblind.
You have to be in this kind of a situation where you get to know people individually and then have to have some kind of, shared similar experiences, even if they look differently or whatever, or have different cultural practices, that we all have a lot of basic, similar, evolved nature, all the same emotions and a lot of the same reactions towards things.
I asked her out first.
He did it. Yeah, he asked the question.
Yeah, it was just like a test, to see if she would say, yeah, let's call some other friends. But, she said, oh, that sounds like fun. And then, so it's like, okay, great.
Yeah.
As romance blossoms, dating couples start to make plans for the future. Meeting the parents can be a nerve-wracking experience. More so for interracial couples. December 1996. Yako planned a special trip to Japan. If he had a choice, he wouldn't have gone in the middle of winter, but he had an important mission.
First obstruction itself, I missed a plane, huh?
It's never easy to get what you want.
Jakob was on his way to ask Keiko's father for her hand in marriage. Like a proper gentleman, he wanted to do it the right way, seeking his future father-in-law's blessing before marriage.
I flew the next day, arrived there, it's winter, about -5 degrees, no? And then from Narita to her place about 3 hours, no? Arrived at the house, winter, and then knocked the door, ding dong, ding dong. So all of a sudden, a man came out, see? Which is my father-in-law, see? I said, good evening, Mr. Soeda. I said, I'm from Singapore. He said, my daughter is still studying and we are not keen for any further developments. He said, thank you, and just closed the door. No?
All I remember is he just closed the door.
He was like, oh gosh, the whole thing shut down. No? He was so sad, and then you were in someone's land, winter, gloomy. Not only the whole place, but your whole heart gloomy. So I walked back slowly to the hotel, snowflakes, snow dropping. I was literally cried. I cried.
The 20-minute walk felt like an eternity. Azri's first meeting with Deanna's mother didn't go too well either.
That first meetup with my mom was very frosty, and I could tell immediately that she didn't approve of it. My mom, she was always traveling, so she came back from Taiwan one day, and I told her I would pick her up, and I brought him along. She wasn't happy to see him at the airport. I could tell from her face and her expressions and body language. I think did she even shake your hand, even though you offered? I can't remember.
Though that was disheartening, Deanna didn't give up. She knew that if her parents got to know the man she had fallen in love with, they would love him too.
I really didn't want, to have that kind of strain because I'm an only child, right? So then I tried to initiate several meetups, like, we have lunch together. My dad would come, my mom would come, and then it would be like just awkward. Awkward. It was awkward, right? Yeah. After the first 2 makan sessions, then he started coming over quite regularly, in a way, to watch soccer.
Yeah, luckily the dad watch soccer as well, so at least there's something where we can talk about. But for the mom, actually, there's nothing lah.
Deanna grew up in a rather insulated environment with limited opportunities to interact with people of other ethnicities.
For me, I think you're my first Malay friend. I don't think I have any classmates from other races. All the way, even until when I was in JC, it was a Christian JC. My only other friend was a Eurasian, but then the rest are all Chinese. So it was only until I went into U, then it's like a hot pot of other races and other nationalities.
It might be hard to believe that this would occur in multicultural Singapore. But what Deanna and her family experienced could be explained by what sociologists call contact theory, or a lack thereof.
Is a theory that suggests that the more contact we have with people who are different to us, so we develop more empathy, we're more open to them, we are less discriminatory towards them. In Singapore, the ethnic integration policy in some ways is based on this understanding that if we live side by side next to people who are different to us, we will develop a tolerance and even maybe an appreciation for their differences. We might start to understand people's cultures better. Our ethnic integration policy applies to about 80% of the population.
That means the proportion, higher limit and lower limit of different races in a neighborhood, in a precinct, as well as in the individual blocks as well.
Dr. Liu Thai Ker, the man credited to have built Singaporeans, their vertical kampong, was the CEO of the Housing Development Board from 1979 to 1989.
It took us about 8 or 9 months to study that, to find out what is a fair and at the same time effective limit.
Thai Ker knew very well he wasn't just building physical structures to provide roofs over Singaporeans' heads. He was also building what were to become communities.
In the 60s, when you ask Singaporeans, what citizen are you? They say, a Chinese would say, my country is China. A Malay would say Malaysia. and the Indian would say to India. There was no sense of nationhood, but now we have a strong sense, and that did not come naturally.
Yeah.
It's through a very careful design to do that.
On the personal front, Thai Ker has also built a multiracial family. His wife Gretchen, an author and former journalist, is from the United States. They share a common passion in art and architecture.
We share the common interest of appreciating the historical buildings in Singapore. That's something which is quite rare among my Singapore friends.
You know, they were very run down, oftentimes, especially like in Chinatown or Little India. But you could see that there was some kind of integrity and beauty to the architecture, and it was sort of like a visual aspect of Singapore's history. So we used to enjoy kind of walking around these areas.
The two connected almost immediately.
I would get back to what I call fate, because I do very clearly remember the first time I saw Thai Ker. And I know it sounds rather silly to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. And it was almost as if we had known each other in a previous life. It was an instinct. It was just something that I can't explain.
Yes.
Yeah. And subsequently, I found out that he had also had a similar feeling. So what can we say? That's very romantic.
Personally, I feel that understanding and appreciating each other's culture is the beginning of love.
Sociologists, when we think about harmony, racial harmony, or integration, we use interracial marriage as one of the indicators of how well we're doing. So along those lines, I would say Singapore's doing pretty well. When we look globally, we have one of the highest levels of interracial marriage between different ethnic groups, but also between Singaporeans and foreigners.
Chinese New Year 2015.
Yeah, it was Chinese New Year.
Yeah. We met in 2012. He only met my family 2015 Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for 3 years, your parents had no idea.
I'm not sure if they suspected something, but they do know I have a French tenant that I hang out with.
Arnaud had been in Singapore on a work contract. And if he didn't get an offer to stay on, he'd have to leave. Fortunately for the lovebirds, Arnaud was offered a position right as the contract was coming to an end. And they felt the time was right to break the news to the parents.
Before he arrived, I told my mom already, this guy that is coming, I quite like him, we are in a relationship. He's actually my French tenant. She was immediately like, what? So she started asking a lot of questions. How long has he been in Singapore? Is he going to stay here for long? What's he like? How old is he? What does he do? Are you sure you can trust him?
While Jocelyn was subjected to an interrogation, Arnaud, on the other hand, quite enjoyed his special guest status.
Everybody was very nice with me. I discovered that some member of the family can speak a little bit French. I feel very welcoming. There's a lot of cookie.
Yeah, there was a lot of cookies, Chinese New Year cookies. So I made sure he brought his oranges. My parents even gave him a red packet. So yeah.
And it was the first time I see the family of Chinese New Year. Obviously.
Yeah.
So it was quite nice.
Shikin and Yenho met and fell in love as teenagers in school. Their relationship matured as they transitioned from students to working adults. But after 7 years, Yenho still hadn't popped the question.
I think I was still taking things like 1 week at a time and not bringing myself to deal with the issues of, like family, religion, and marriage.
Yeah. When you think about a girlfriend-boyfriend relationship, there's no religion. Like, religion does not come into play. Race does not come into play. But once you start talking about getting married, then yes, these things, like the serious matters come up. And so I think for him, he felt like if he could delay that as long as he could, then, we can remain in our happy little bubble.
Si Kunalan and Yong Yin met as teammates in the national athletics team in the early 1960s. A time when interracial marriages were much less accepted and far less common. The discussion of marriage was a non-starter when just seeing each other was considered taboo.
One day I was getting ready to go on a date with her. I came downstairs from my room and my parents were sitting there, and then they said, "You're going to go out with that Chinese girl, right? If you go out tonight, then you don't come back." I still remember, tears were welling up, my hair was standing, and I didn't know what to do. I just took my birth certificate and I left home.
So after his coming out,
don't use the word coming out.
Kicked out. Then it was my turn, because my father sent my uncle one day to see me and told me that, your father said that you must not go out with this Indian boy. If you go out with this Indian boy, it will bring shame to him and to the family. But if you still want to go out with him, you have to leave home.
The family's objections pushed the couple together even closer. After a trying year, they decided to get married. They sent wedding invitations to their families, hoping for the best while expecting the worst. One Sunday morning, Si Kunalan received a surprise visit from his father.
"So, you are serious about getting married? Why don't we do this?" he said. And again, I was shivering. What is he going to suggest? And he said, "You go home and you ask forgiveness from your mother. And then you tell your Chinese girlfriend that we will convert her to Hinduism."
Because I don't have any one religion, and I feel that all religions are the same. And also the main thing was that I wanted to bring peace to the family, let them accept me. So if it pleases them, I will do it.
The family acceptance is so important to make the marriage stronger. And without the family acceptance, you may feel that you're on your own. Let's say you are experiencing some problems like financial difficulties, you may not be able to turn to your family support because they will say, "I told you so." If they are having difficulty with the child, for example, with childcare, they're not able to go to their parents for additional help. You also have problems with your in-laws. And without the approval of your own family, you're left on your own, you're feeling lonely, and you have no one to turn to.
In 2010, Yenho was posted to the United States on a work assignment. Those 2 years were hard on Shikin, especially since Yenho hadn't made a firm commitment on their relationship. But the separation also gave Yenho much-needed alone time to think.
The time spent overseas gave me time to think about not just where I see myself and where I see us the future for us, but also I got some distance away from some of the pressures that I got maybe from family, from friends, and from church friends as well.
Tucked in his luggage as Yen Ho returned from his overseas stint was a small turquoise box.
So I made a card, pop-up card, and the ring is inside the card. And apart from that, I made like a little motif with sparklers in them, and then I lit them up in the night, so it looked very beautiful at night in the park. Yeah. So yes, so that's and I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. Yeah.
Do you want the right answer?
No. No.
Do you want the historically factual?
No.
Okay. He made this motif, and it was all made out of sparklers. I think there was 100 sparklers, and they all were lined up to say, I heart you. So I love you. And you know, scientifically, he thought it made sense if he lights up one sparkler, it will just go through, right? Like a big, like a small little firework.
Chain reaction.
Like a chain reaction, yes. Didn't it happen like that? Once he went halfway through the eye, the whole thing burst into flames. And he freaked out because he's like, oh my God, I'm gonna propose. This was my big thing. He drops it on the floor. And he's like, how am I gonna save it now? It's all on fire. And then when I turn around, she's like, oh no. So he doesn't normally freak out. But that was the day I saw him freak out. Yeah, so we put out the fire, you know. And then...
Okay, this part of the story cannot go. Yeah, this will omit that.
The explosive proposal was just a prelude. Yen Ho still needed to break the news of his impending conversion to Islam to his very traditional patriarchal father.
Even when we were younger and his children go to church, and you know, when we address God as the father, he's not very settled in the sense that, you know, you're addressing somebody who's not me as father. When we talk about marriage and religion, you know, his concern is, 你还是我的儿子, are you still, you know, my son? Yes, you still call me father. Yes, so I reassure him, yes.
Yeah, and I remember because I saw that, you know, his younger brother had written him a note and said, Kok, you can marry Shikin, but you cannot become Malay. Because, you know, at that time, in his head, it's still, you know, Malay Muslim, right? So he didn't see them as two separate things. So he was scared that his brother was going to become Malay and not Chinese. It's quite sweet, actually.
While conversion is voluntary, a non-Muslim has to convert in order to marry his or her Muslim partner, for the marriage to be recognized in the Islamic court. Many face initial resistance from their families in this process.
One of the common misconceptions is that when my child converts, is he or she going to become a Malay? Usually parents, they're afraid, right? Their children will lose all their cultural aspect and they'll become a completely different person. That is not true. A Muslim doesn't equate to being a Malay. A Chinese can be a Muslim. Caucasian can be a Muslim. An Indian can be a Muslim.
Sheila's father, Mr. Lee, had always been supportive towards Sheila's relationship with Yasser and her decision to convert to Islam. Father and daughter worked together at the family's restaurant, which Mr. Lee hopes that Sheila will take over one day.
我相信什么宗教都是一样的 ，as long 你要做好事就 OK 了。因为他有一个好的工作啊，他有工作，他就 OK 了。
Sheila started attending religious classes and tried fasting a year before her engagement to Yasser.
It was quite difficult at first. There are times that I tell myself like, oh, I cannot take it already, I cannot fast and all. But he, on the other hand, was like, when you're a Muslim, do you know that you need to fast like the full month? I have to learn a lot of things. And these are the things that I have to do it daily, in a daily basis. I'm still living in my parents' house. How do I pray? Where do I pray? You know? And I have dogs at home. I can't even touch them. And how do I cook at home? because knowing that I can't like eat together with my family and I have to use like different utensils and all.
To us, the religion is easy. Why? Because we were born into it and we have had possibly 20, 30, 40 years of being acquainted to the religion. But we have to understand that individuals who are converts, they are akin to a newborn baby. It is a whole new world for them. So we cannot expect, immediate results from these individuals.
Even way before I converted, I actually tried to wear the hijab and all. And then like he would like always ask me to just try to wear the hijab. But in my mind I was like, oh, I'm just trying, I'm just practicing, but what do you need me to wear it every day? It's quite difficult for me.
Back then I was a bit too pushy and harsh on her, so I wasn't very understanding.
A lot of times we see in cases whereby these born Muslim individuals, they have unrealistic expectations. By this time you are supposed to wear the hijab. By this time you are supposed to be able to pray 5 times without missing any. By this time you're supposed to already fast completely in the month of Ramadan during the fasting month. And it is very important for the born Muslim partners to not pressure the convert individual, making her feel bad about herself, because all these will backfire.
We argue a lot. He'll be like telling me like, oh, you're not being a good Muslimah. For me, it's like, I'm trying, but you didn't see how, how I'm trying my best to do it. Then I'll like, okay lah, I'll just try to trigger him. So when we argue, I'll be like posting my non-hijab photo on my social media. Then he'll be like, why are you doing this? I say, oh, you are saying that I'm not a good Muslimah, what? So I'll just let you see lah, like this is not a good Muslimah.
The arguments between Sheila and Yasser got so heated that they postponed their wedding plans indefinitely. From courtship to marriage and parenthood, every couple faces challenges along the way. But with language, cultural, and religious differences added to the mix, do interracial couples have to navigate through a more complex web of issues in their pursuit of happiness? More on these stories on part 2 of Love That Binds.